Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about the relative frequency graph. Basically, where we're turning our information into a percent. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. A few things that we need to know. So first of all, what is relative frequency? So when you see that, it's just the same thing as converting your items into a percent. Secondly, whenever we're not given the total, we have to find the total. We do so by adding or combining all of our data sets. And then the last thing is how to find a percent, which we've talked about multiple ways on how to, by either doing TIBO or remember by part over whole, percent over 100. Those are just a few ways that we've been talking about in class. Let's go ahead and jump into our first problem. So we will be using this proportion anchor chart as a reference throughout. It might be fairly lengthy because I'm going to try to go through each different method on how to solve, focusing on relationship, reduce, and equation. You can also divide, but I'm just sticking with the most important ones. So first step, we're going to find our total. We do not know our total, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. So we know that 10 plus 6 gives me 16. 16 plus 4, that's 20. And then 20 plus 5, that gives me 25. So we know that my total is 25. In order to make a fraction, we always need to know my whole. So now we can just set up and turn it into our percent proportion, which is step number 2. Part over whole, percent over 100. So let's do vanilla first. So 10 over 25 is equal to x over 100. I see a relationship. So I know that 25 times 4 will give me 100. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And therefore, vanilla represents 40%. Let's keep going. 6 over 25, x over 100. 25 times 4. 6 times 4 gives me 24%. Let's keep going. 4 over 25. 4 times 4, 16%. And by now you should be able to see the pattern. We're just basically multiplying by 4. So if I wanted to, I can go 5 times 4, and of course that would give me 20%. But let's practice setting it up just for practice. So 5 over 25 is equal to times 4 times 4, and we should have got 20%. Let's check our percentages by adding it up. Remember, our total should always equal up to, you got it, 100. So in this case, we know that 40 plus 20, that gives us 60. Now let's add up my two other ones. 24 plus 16, and that gives me 40 plus my 60. We know we got 100%. Perfect. Now, let's go ahead and look at our percent bar, because remember, they go hand in hand. So once I turn it into a percent, I will use these percents to put it on a percent bar. Now remember, with a percent bar, it's very important that you make sure that you stop at a particular number to make sure it fills in the 100%. So let's go ahead. We know that vanilla is 40%, and I'll just use that as my red. 10, 20, 30, 40. So all this would be for vanilla. Let me pick another color. Let's say orange is going to be my mint. And so in this case, we know we need to shade in 24. 10, 20, and then this will be 25, so we'll go a little bit behind that 25. A good way to check my answer on this is to go wherever I stopped at. So in this case, I stopped at about 64. And from wherever I started at, which was 40, and I have shaded in 24%. So that's a way that you could check your answer to ensure that you are shading in correctly. Let's keep going. So in this case, I can go ahead shade in my next one, which would be 16. And I can simply go 64 plus 16. And so I need to stop at 80. Let me pick another color. My cookies and cream will be blue. And I need to stop at 80. And then my last one will be the rest, 20%. And let me pick one more color. And that will be my chocolate. And there we go. We have completed our relative frequency table and our percent bar. Let's try another one. So these are animals at the zoo. First things first, let's look at our steps and let's look at our proportion problem and see if it's a different way we can solve. So maybe we can try the cross multiply and divide in this one, or we can try the reduce. So in this case, first I need to find my total. So I would add everything up. That's 17. That's 32. 32 plus 8, we get 40. Okay, so now that we know my total, let's practice the cross multiply and divide way, or like I say, we can try the reduce. Let's try the reduce way and see if we get anything. So in this case, let's start with my giraffe. I have 12 giraffes over 40 is equal to x over 100. In this case, I don't see a direct relationship, so let's practice our reduce method in this one. So in this case, I know that I can reduce by 2. And I get 6 over 20. From there, 6 over 20, 20 goes into 100 5 times. So I would go 6 times 5, and that gives me 30. So 30% of the animals are giraffes. Let's keep going. So my next one, 5 over 40. Of course, we said we didn't see a relationship. Or let's try a reduce method. That's the way we're working on, reduce. So I know I can reduce by 5. Oh, wait, I do see a relationship. Times it by 8. And in this case, I would have to divide by 8. Goes in there 1 time. Goes in there 2 times. Goes in there 5 times. So in this case, we're going to have a decimal. Let's keep going. Let me erase this so I can have more room. Okay, let's continue. So I have 15 over 40. This one will be a perfect one to practice our reduce method on this one. Divided by 5. That gives me 3 over 8. And we know 3 over 8. So we could either top in, bottom out. We can look for a relationship. Or let's also practice our cross multiply and divide. So in case we don't see a relationship, because remember, not all the time will there be a relationship. So when it's not, let's practice this way. I can go 300, because I get that by multiplying 100 times 3. I get 300, and I can divide it by 8, whoever left out. So in this case, I know that goes in there 3 times. 8, 16, 24. And I have 6 left over. I bring it over. It goes in there 7 times. And I'm going to run out of room. That's 56, 4. And my last one, 0.5. So in this case, 37.5%. And my last one, 8 over 40. I can reduce this down by 2 because I don't see a relationship. So I can reduce this down by 2. And that gives me 4 over 20. Going back to my relationship, and I get 20%. Okay, now let's practice graphing it back on our percent bar. Okay, so we know that my giraffes is 30%. Our zebras, we'll make that blue. And we're going to go to 12.5. So from here to here, that's 10. Then about 2 more and a half would be 12.5. Let me pick another color. Green, those would be my monkeys. And again, we're going to 37.5. So if I'm not sure, again, we stopped at about 43 plus 37.5. And again, this will let me know where to stop. So basically, I should be stopping about 80.5 and then leave the last little 20% for lions. There you go. Let's try one more, and then I will leave you a couple of practice problems to try on your own. Okay, let's try this last one really quickly, and then, like I say, I will leave you some practice questions. So first things first, I have to find my total. $20 plus 12 $32 $40 $50. So I know that my total is equal to 50. 50 is a good number, a perfect number, because it also goes into 100. So again, let's practice our different ways. Let's look at relationship. Since this is our last one, let's practice relationship, let's practice reduce, and let's see if we can find one with an equation as well. So let's make my first one. Favorite subject. So 20 people chose ELA over 5 is equal to X over 100. In this case, let's practice our cross multiply and divide, just in case. I see a relationship, so if you see a relationship, you can keep going. But let's look at cross and multiply and divide in this case. So in this case, I can go 100 times 20, and I can do that just by adding a 0. So in this case, it'll give me 2,000, and I'm going to add an extra 0. And then I'm going to divide that by 50. So let's pretend that I have $2. How many 50 cents can I get into dollars? I can get 4, which makes 200. I have an extra 0 and I could just bring it up. So in this case, ELA represents 40%. I also want to look at this one so we can look for a relationship. I see a relationship between 20 and 10. I know that 10 times 2 would give me 20. So in this case, I can divide this by 2, and that's going to give me 20%. Let's go ahead and look at the next ones. So in this case, I have 12 over 50. And let's just use relationship in this case. Or I could use my divide or reduce in this case. Let's try to reduce it down. So I know I have 12 over 50, which is the same thing as 6 over 25. X over 100 times 4 times 4, and I get 24. So I know math is at 24%. Let's look at my last one, and then we'll fill in my percent bar. And then I'll leave you with some practice questions to try on your own. So 8 over 50 is equal to x over 100 times 2 times 2, and I get 16%. Again, we could take our time to add these up to make sure that it's equal up to 100%. So we know that 40 plus 20, that gives me 60. 60 plus 24, that gives me 84. And then the last one, that gives me 100%. So let's go ahead, let's fill out our percent bar so I can leave you with some practice questions to try on your own. So the last one. So the first one is 40%. And so I'll simply just shade into my 40%. 24%, like math, which I would just shade in my 24. And if you're not sure where your 24 goes, I can go 40, because that's where we stopped at, plus 24. And so I should stop at 64, which is a little bit after my halfway mark, or a little bit before my halfway mark. Okay, let's keep going. So now we know social studies is at 16%. Let me pick another color. We're going to get blue for social studies. So in this case, 16%. I'm not sure where to mark my 16%. So let's go ahead. So we stopped at 64. So I can go 64 plus 16. And that means I need to stop at 80. And then the last one, of course, would be 20%, and that would be the remainder. For science is at 20%. Okay, so I have left you some practice questions. I hope this helps. Take your time, do your best, and remember to use your anchor chart, and remember part over whole, percent over 100. Okay, try these, pause to try these independently. And you can also pause here for more practice.